Hi Year 12, apologies for the last minute having to cancel the lesson. As I say, there's meetings going on in school as part of the Ofsted sort of visit, remote inspection, which meant I wasn't able to deliver the lesson live, but I'm recording this so that you've still got that explanation of what I would like you to be working on during your lesson. So your retrieval task is blanked out sections of your knowledge organiser, and I would like you to do it. Obviously, I wouldn't expect you to recreate the exact format. If you've got a printer, great, but if not, it's more important that you're just recalling what you can on those blanked out areas. So Bowlby's theory of why attachments form contrasted with the behavioural explanations or the learning theories of why attachments form, making sure we can define all of our keywords that we keep coming across time and time again, and also our more recent work on the effect of attachment on later life. So you might jot in there some of the key studies that we've been looking at, but remember, you need to do it from memory because those connections are not going to get stronger if you're looking things up. Of course, when you've had a good go, then pause the video and look things up and get your original knowledge organiser. So here we are. You can check your own responses, and as always, if there are gaps and you think, oh yeah, that was the one I forgot, that was the one I couldn't remember, you know to address that. Yeah, don't just think, oh well, that's done now. You know to create that flashcard or revisit that flashcard. You know to keep quizzing yourself on it, because no stone can be left unturned when it comes to these key studies and this key terminology. Okay, so that's the first main thing I want you to make sure that you're confident with. And then moving on, we are moving on slightly in today's lesson, but we're going to see big links and big connections between this idea of the continuity hypothesis. Remember, continues on, continuity, the idea that your attachment type as an infant goes on to shape your later life. We are still thinking about that. But in particular, we're going to turn our attention now to the specific idea of maternal deprivation. And whenever we're faced with terms like that we're not familiar with, the first thing we should do is break it down and ask ourselves, right, where have I heard that word maternal before? Well, you'll probably think of maternity leave, maternity hospitals. We're talking about mother, maternal deprivation, the motherly figure, and being deprived of that. So Bowlby in particular, we know him, we know his evolutionary theory, we know we use Smacky as our little way of remembering the key elements. We're coming back to Bowlby again here because he was particularly interested in what will be the consequence if an infant is deprived of their maternal figure, so maternal deprivation, especially during that critical period. So that's our focus for today. And you can see on the board, I'm just reminding you of what we call the Cornell Notes strategy, because there's going to be a couple of video clips that you're going to be looking at during this lesson, and also some reading, as you would expect. And I would really suggest for you to use the Cornell Notes strategy and to be selective. You know, when you're doing the reading, what is the essential information that I need to write down? And what key word, or even diagram if you prefer, but what little memory trigger can I capture so that I can use this in the future for retrieval and for revision? So this was just a reminder of that Cornell strategy where you take your general notes, one side, just as you're thinking and as you're reading, as you're seeing things, and then you condense it and you really break it down to the big idea. Okay, so the first thing for you to do and to apply that Cornell Notes strategy to is unmuscle it. And you've all signed up, and the actual PowerPoint that I've shared with you, if you click on this slide, it will take you there, but of course you will still need to log in. And it's the Bowlby maternal deprivation video that I want you to watch and take those notes. Okay, and then of course we're going to be picking this up next week in lesson. Okay, so pause me and go to that and spend, it's a 7-minute video, and obviously you'll need to allow yourself time to take some notes. So about 10 minutes of the lesson, I would imagine. Okay, so then this next part of the portion of the lesson is more based around reading. And what I've included there on the slide, which you will have, is just a web link that takes you to the Simply Psychology page, which is a good website for reading up on things linked to psychology. And this particular page is all about Bowlby, and it will overlap with some of what you've just seen on that video in terms of his theory of maternal deprivation, and in particular his 44 juvenile thieves study. And I'd like you to be using that Cornell note, so keep adding to that document you've already got started. And I just picked out one quote in particular. Mother love in infancy and childhood is as important for mental health as vitamins and proteins are for physical health. So Bowlby thought it was vital. This was about survival of your own mental health, and it could not be compromised. And he thought that if it was, and if you were deprived of your maternal love in infancy, then it had severe consequences. Okay, so I'll let you again pause this video, really take the time, again, probably about 15 minutes of reading and note-taking time from that particular page. Now, I just wanted to explain this bit because this is a common trap that some students fall into. And we've got to be really careful not to confuse the different ideas in this area of psychology. So Bowlby was talking about maternal deprivation. He wasn't talking about short periods of time when you might be separated from your mother because mum's gone into hospital for a little bit, or even just gone to work for the day. We know that a child will react to those short periods of separation, but it's very, very different from never having it and being deprived of it for years of your infancy. Okay, so that's one important distinction. There's a number of other little traps that students often fall into. So Bowlby did say, when he was investigating the 44 juvenile thieves, that an affectionless character doesn't develop easily. This is years of the consequence of maternal deprivation plus possibly other forms of abuse. And he did recognise that this was very complex. He did say that because children are biologically biased to form an attachment to the person looking after them, they will do so even if abused, because there's that innate, remember the language of the evolutionary theory, there's that innate ability to form an attachment for your own survival. So even if that is with a person who is abusive, you will still do that, Bowlby said. It's really important for you to keep using that language of the evolutionary approach. Yeah, innate, survival, evolutionary advantage. This is what Bowlby would have used. And Bowlby did say that if mothers leave their young children for long parts of the day, it's essential to ensure that they have quality care. So he wasn't saying that mothers should never go out to work and that if you did, you're a bad mother. But he was saying for the child's own development and security of attachments, you need to make sure it's quality care that they're going to. Well, I don't know many mothers that wouldn't think about that. Of course, people are going to be concerned about the quality of care. A considerate proportion of children who are the victims of deprivation in their early lives do escape delinquency and other damage. And, Bowlby's recognising that. So whilst Bowlby is telling us, if you are deprived of your mother in infancy, it can have consequences such as delinquency, such as affectionless psychopathy, such as deviant behaviour. He's painting this really bleak picture. He did recognise that wouldn't be everybody. And it's important you recognise that. But he thought that even though risks might be low, they were so considerable, we should do all we can to avoid it. So Bowlby just couldn't bear to think of this child as not having that maternal love. He thought that was fatal. Okay. And it's just important to make those distinctions, because often students will think that Bowlby was somehow suggesting women mustn't go to work, or that if you leave your child just for a couple of days they're going to be severely damaged for the rest of their life, and that they're totally irreversible, and that they'll always be delinquents. And actually Bowlby wasn't suggesting any of those things, but he was very much warning us that that this is very important, this maternal love in early infancy. Okay, so the final source I'm going to share with you, and this is sort of probably going to become weekend reading really before we pick this up in class next week. Another web link there, digging a bit deeper into the 44 juvenile thieves study. So again, you'll see there's overlap here. This is all just about you reading and building up a nice big picture so we can pick this up next week. So another web link to have a read through, and that will allow you to create one of those key study cards. So we'll do that next week in lesson together, and we'll really dig a bit deeper in terms of some of those questions. But as you're making your notes and as you're doing your reading, have that in mind. But I certainly think that's more than enough for an hour's lesson. Okay? So I'm not expecting you to submit anything or show me photos of any of this, because I'm going to see you in lesson on Monday or Tuesday, and we're going to be able to explore all of this together and deal with any gaps in knowledge or any uncertainties. But I would like you to make sure you do that reading and watch the Masalit video and have some Cornell notes ready to bring with you to Monday's lesson or Tuesday's lesson. Okay, thanks Year 12. Take care. I can't wait to see you all next week.